Well, howdy folks, welcome back to the shop. So today we're going to be working on the golf cart again. So what's going on now is the pinion seal on the rear end is starting to leak oil. It's actually been leaving drops here and there, and I was trying to figure out where it was coming from. I thought it was the clutch, like we had problems with that before. Well, no, it's coming from the pinion seal. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take the rear end out and we're going to change that seal, but we're also going to put new belts on it for the starter generator and the drive belt, which that's right here is the drive belt. It's a Dayco belt. Part number on it's HP 2008, so that's that one. And the pinion seal is laying right back here too, and you can see it's just that there, and it's an SKF, and the part number on it is 15141. So with that said, why don't we dive down into this and let's get this rear end out. Alright, so I want to bring you a little bit closer. You might not be able to see the oil drips on the floor there, but you can tell that the pinion was leaking on this, and it's been leaking pretty bad actually. So I was going to try to do this on the cart here, but you have to get all this stuff taken apart, and there's hardly any room here. I don't even know how you get this all completely apart yet. And I think it's going to be easier just to pull the rear end out. Plus, I'm going to pull the back cover off, inspect the gears and everything in there. The end seals aren't leaking yet, or the axle seals, so we're not going to mess with those yet. So you have to take off these two bolts down here. The heads of those are 9/16 top and bottom. Then you got the shock bolts over here. The heads of those are 3/4, both top and bottom. They're the same. And then we got to take this out. This is just a pin with a cotter pin on it. That's pretty easy. And then this guy here has got to come off. That's just a 1/2 inch. It's either 1/2 inch or 9/16. And then this rod, we're just going to loosen it up down here. But after that, the whole rear end should fall out. So the first thing to do is get this belt off. And what I like to do is, if I can get it to do it, is just walk it off. And it's a little bit of a pain, but you can get it. And the reason why I am changing this belt is with the clutch going bad, it leaked oil all over this. I think what's going on, and you can tell by my fingers, is all the fibers that are in the end of this belt here, I think it's soaked up the oil, and that's why it's causing me some issues still. So that's the reason why I got a new belt. I hate to throw this away, but I don't know what else to do. So after that, we'll get the starter generator bolt or belt off. You can see it right there, and that's pretty easy. You just loosen up this, pull it in. You might have to loosen up these two bolts down here. So with that said, let's start getting this all apart. Okay, here's the pin and the cotter pin that was up here. Then once you get this loosened up, if you pull this, the cable, there's a notch in this down here that the cable comes out. So all you do is pull this up like this and then get that cable to flop down there. So that's done. Let's start working on the other bolts. Okay, I wanted to show you the head of this bolt is a 9/16. So this has to come out. You don't have to take it off here if you don't want to. You could actually take this bracket loose if you'd liked. But I forgot to mention earlier that I did get this jacked up, and it is sitting on jack stands, so the rear end's kind of free floating. So I may end up taking this whole rod out. I'm not sure. I'm hoping that I can get it to scoot back enough to get it to fall out. But the 4 bolts that holds the rear end in are these ones here, and the heads of them are 9/16, and they're probably tight. You can see they're pretty long bolts. So one of the things that I do is, these bolts, I'm going to take them down into the garage and we're going to clean these threads up. I see these are lock nuts, so I probably won't mess with them too much. Maybe run the tap in just to where it starts touching the locking part of it. But I'm going to clean all these threads up before we put this all back together. So let me get all these bolts out and I'll bring it back. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, these bolts here. I will go ahead and take this shock off real quick, and then this rear end will be ready to come out. All right, so once you get all these bolts out, I would recommend before you do any of that to put a jack up underneath the rear end here to give it some support. Otherwise, it's just going to fall on the ground here. So all the bolts are out. So we're going to slowly let this down just a little bit. Well, lesson learned here is, even though I got it, I think I'm going to take this rod completely out to put it back in and then just let it down on the ground there. So, all right. So now we got the rear end out. I'm going to put it up on a table or jack stands or something here, and I'll bring it back and show you what we got going on. All right, so we have the rear end out here, and the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and take apart this clutch. We are going to inspect this secondary clutch only because we have it apart, and why not? So I was thinking that there was a tool that, you know, would press on both sides of this to get these clips out. But I read the manual and it just says to press it and take them out. So I come up with this idea and it might work. And whoop, you know, there's one of them, and that's all they are. And then what we'll do is basically do it to the other side. Same exact thing. And that was not supposed to happen, so I need to find a better way to put them on and off. But it did come off, obviously not the way I wanted it. So what you have is two springs, one inside, one outside, and then that rides in there, and then here's the retaining. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to take and redo all this. Anyway, you can see it's pretty grimy in here. So with that said, let's keep moving. All right, so we're going to take this off, and there you go. You can see, and there's some damage I was not expecting. You can see this roller here. It has a flat spot in it. So does this one, but not near as bad as this one. So that'll have to be addressed. Awful tight. So this is a rubber washer, and you can see that there is 4 bolts in behind here, and you can tell that somebody's been in here because they are not in the greatest of shape. So I don't have a big flathead screwdriver up here, so hang tight. I'm going to run down to the garage and grab a big flathead screwdriver. Alright, so I got my big flat screwdriver, and you know, this is something interesting too, is this is loose. So something tells me, yeah, look at that, these guys aren't even tight. So I'll just run them out with this. I have an adapter. Mac Tools makes these, and this is just an adapter, flathead to 3/8 drive. Okay, so now we get to get that off. I mean, one good sign is I do not see any cracks. I think what we're going to do is get this stuff all cleaned up before we get it all put back on too. So now we're down to the brake assembly here. I do need new pads, I know that. I do not have them, and actually they seem to be a little bit hard to find, so I might end up making my own pads. But we're going to go ahead and take this, I guess you would call it a caliper, off of this, and then we'll take this all off. if you're wondering why I'm taking the caliper off instead of just taking this bracket off, well, the main reason is I want to clean all that stuff up. So now there's 4 bolts that's on the back side of this holding this stuff on. So let's get that stuff taken out. All right, so after you get those 4 bolts out, you should be able to just pop this and get this taken out. And there's your rotor. And next we got to do is we got to take this bolt out here to get access to that front seal, but it also looks like we might have to take these 3 out. I don't know if you can see, but this is already starting to drip oil on the front here. So I don't know if you just noticed, I got this cotter pin out and took this bracket off, but look, this isn't even tight. And this should just slide right out, which it did. All right, so this is the seal that is our culprit here. This is another tool that you can get from Mac, and what this is you come in here and hook, and then you use a hammer and just pop this right out. But I'll have to move you guys back for that. So here's how it works. You put it in, and then you just smack it. But there you go. And there's the seal. So while we have this here now, I am curious to see what these bearings look like since we're right here. And I have to say, these bearings actually look really good shape. So that's a good sign. So I was a little bit curious that there may be an issue there, but I'm starting to think not. It actually looks really good. So I'm going to start getting everything cleaned up, and then we'll start the reassembly process after I get everything cleaned up. All right, I wanted to bring you in here and show you real quick. Make sure if you take this all apart here, make sure you put all the stuff back in the way you found it. You need that spacer, and you need to make sure you have all of these shims. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4 shims here. I didn't measure them, but I'm putting exactly the same in that I took out. So all we're going to do is just drop those down in there. And now we can put our bearing in. Just like that. So then we can add our, they call this the oil slinger. We can put that guy down in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get this seal installed. That way it's in here and we don't have to worry about it. So let me get that pressed in, because my other camera's dead, so it's going to be hard for me to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that pressed in. I'll bring you right back. All right, so I apologize for the camera. If something happened, the batteries went dead. I thought I lost some footage here, but so I want to kind of step you through a couple pictures and kind of explain, some of the other problems that I had found. So on this yoke here, on the back side of it, you could see how rusty it was, and you can see where the oil seal lip or ring right there is, and you can tell it wasn't sealing very well. So what I did is I clamped it in my lathe and I basically polished it up. I ended up taking off, I think it was about 2.5, 3 thousandths off of each side, so it's about 5 thousandths under, which isn't really going to hurt the seal. I did look up the seal, and that's well within spec still. So here's after I got it cleaned up and polished up, and you can tell it looks so much better than what it was before. So I don't know if water had got in there before or whatever, but it caused that rust to build up. And whenever rust gets in there like that on that seal, it's gonna destroy that seal. So I'm assuming that's what happened here. So this next shot here is the bearing was bad inside this clutch housing. So what I ended up doing is I got a bearing. I basically measured it and everything, and then ordered one from McMaster Car. So I found one that was the right size, so I was able to get it. I did have to clean up the inside a little bit on the lathe, but it turned out great. So I was able to get the new one pressed in, and there you can see how it's pressed in, and I mean, it really turned out well, so I was very pleased with that, and it fits well on the other shaft, or the mating shaft. So the other thing that I did is, whenever I had this all apart, I took and cleaned up the rear end, drained all the fluid out, because whenever I saw that rustle in that yoke there, I was a little bit concerned that there might be water or some other moisture inside here, and I actually expected this to be a lot more shape than it is, because in my opinion, this is really clean. I looked at everything, looked at all the bearings and stuff in this side, and it is in excellent shape. So I'm very, very happy with how it turned out, or how it looks inside. I did not find any water in the oil. Actually, the oil was really nice and clean. So all I did was, once I realized that it was in good shape, I kind of flushed it out a little bit with some cleaner, and then I just filled it back up with fluid. So you kind of missed all that stuff. Now let's get back to it. Get back to the assembly stage. My battery was dead previously, so I don't know what all you guys saw, but the new seals behind here, the yoke here is put on, and then the brake bracket I also got on. I already got the buttoned up in the back here. It's already sealed up. I did put a little bit of fluid on it, and I let it sit like this here for the last couple days to see if anything would drip out, and nothing did. So the seal was apparently working well. It's good, as it should. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is, whenever you're doing a rear end, you got to be careful. If you get this not too tight, you can cause problems. If you leave it too loose, you can cause problems. So normally what you do is, and I like the beam style torque wrenches purposely for this. This is about the only time I ever use one of these. Is the book specifies that I think it's 2 to 14 inch-pounds of rotational force. So what you do is you put it on here, and you keep rotating it, keep rotating it, keep rotating it, and you look at your indicator on here, and you keep setting the torque up higher or lower to get your resistance on your torque wrench here. And that's the proper way to set up the preload on the bearings in behind here. So I already did that, obviously. The nut's already on it, the cotter pin's in it. So with that said, let's start getting this put back together. All right, I moved everything a little bit to see if I get a better camera angle, and plus I put the sun at my side instead of my back to see if it helps anything. But so we're ready to get everything started to get put back together here. And here's the one part, and all I did with this was basically just clean it up. I did chuck it in a lathe and kind of smooth out these spots. There was plier marks, hammer marks, and some teeth marks. You can even see some there, from the previous owner or whatever he did. It won't hurt anything, but I cleaned them up. I wanted to make sure that everything sat flat. Same thing in here. I cleaned these up in here. So the rotor, all I did was take and sandblast it up. I'm not too worried about it. I mean, it's got some pitting and stuff in it, but if this was a fast turning machine, or if it really went fast, I'd be real worried about it. But I'm not too worried about this thing here. So this goes on there, and it should sit all the way flat, and there it goes. And then this goes onto that. Then we'll get these 4 bolts on the inside here done, or tightened up, or nuts I mean. Okay, so we got this shaft on. The bolts are torqued up on the back of it. The next piece is this guy here, and one of the nice things that I found about this, I was very happy that these are common to crack in here. I've seen it on quite a few on people online that had problems with these. So luckily this one isn't cracked, and the reason why this is shined up a little bit on the back here is I took a flat file and cleaned up and made it a little bit flat. There's definitely some wear marks. I don't know if they were from hammering, beating, whatever it was. It doesn't matter, but otherwise this is in good shape. All I did was take and put it in a bead blast cabinet and clean it up real quick. So one thing I might do real quick is I might put anti-seize on the back side of this just to help with it getting it off next time, even though it wasn't very difficult to get off. And this is what I was meaning. I just wanted to light skim coat it with anti-seize to kind of help it if I ever have to get it off. You don't need a whole lot on there. And then after that, we can go ahead and put these bolts, or slide this on, line up the bolt holes, and get this tightened up. Now, if you remember, these were the 4 bolts that was in there before. They're flathead screws, really, and they were not tight. So one thing that I was always, or was showed a long time ago, is put a little bit of RTV on these threads here, and it'll act like Loctite, but you can easily get it out. Plus, it also helps with vibration and stuff. So I'm going to add a little bit of RTV to these threads. And I mean, that's all you need. Sometimes you don't want to use Loctite because Loctite will hinder you from getting it off. You know, some of those Loctites you have to use heat to get off. You can use the blue that you don't have to use heat, but sometimes they're extremely pain. All right, so I didn't find a torque value for these, so I just ran them down tight. So let's keep on moving here. So this is the next piece that gets put on, and these rollers that were in here were flat. I don't know if you remember that. And then this bearing wasn't in the greatest shape, so I did press a new bearing in. So that worked out well. These rollers, here's the one, you can see it was completely damaged. That was the other one. You know, they're just trashed. So I ended up just making 2 new ones. This material I think is UHMW. So let's get these installed, and I'll show you how they come in and out, or how you can remove them. You can buy these, just so you know too, you can buy them. So those rollers that are in there, they're held in with these pins that go crossways this way, but then there's also a roll pin that goes down through this way, and it goes into the head of this. So let's get that installed so you can see. So the roller goes in, and that cross pin goes that way, and then you just push these in until that slot and try to line them up, and you can use a screwdriver to make sure they line up. Kind of give you a close-up if you can see it. Then all this does is you can see how it goes down through the center of it there. And that is it for this. All right, so once you get those rollers in, make sure you get this in here too. I almost forgot that. So then after that, you just set this up on here, and you work it in. And there you go. Now we just need to get our springs and our clip on the end of it, and we can actually get it in the cart. All right, so the next thing to do is get this spring. There's the inner and outer, and then this clip on the outside there. And you know, I didn't have much luck getting this off very easy the last time, so I'm trying to think of other ways. I did look in the book. There is no puller or press for this, so I'm going to lay these here, but I come up with an idea, and we'll give it a shot again to see if it works. And these are welding pliers for spot welding. What I was wondering is if I could do this and then press, and then hopefully with my other hand. That is kind of a pain. I did get one of them in though, so if we can get the other one in, we're golden. And there we go. We got both of them in. So, you know, that is a pain, but it actually seemed to work out pretty well. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Well, I'm going to install the brakes. They're actually laying down here somewhere, and on the cart. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rear end in. You saw how it come out, so I don't really need to show you how it goes in. But after that, I will show you getting the brakes set up. And then if I have everything right, we'll go for a ride and see if anything improved. Well guys, you can see I have everything back together, and I apologize for not showing getting the brakes set up, put back together. It is relatively simple. You know, you get your cable in here and you adjust it to where this is basically centered, which it is pretty much in the 2 divots there. I might have to adjust a little bit more from looking at it from this side, but anyway, but you want to make sure that the pads are nice and loose. And you know, this adjustment here tightens how much it squeezed down here, but this bolt here keeps these kind of spread open. So what you do is you adjust this bolt here and that bolt, that way they clamp parallel to the rotor there. So that's one thing you want to make sure whenever you do that. Otherwise, you'll cause the pads to wear at an angle and whatnot. So other than that, they're relatively simple. You can see that these are new pads. These pads are actually thicker than what the factory is. I think the factory is 1/4 inch or 5/16. I'm not sure. But these are 3/8 thick, so they are a lot thicker. So that's why adjustment's a little bit different on this one here. These pads were made. So, but the other thing you can tell is you could see I got both belts on. So the alternator belt or the generator belt worked out really well. That's real easy to change. It's just loosen up this bolt, and then you got the 2 bolts down here. Then I got the main drive belt on, and I would love to show you running it, but there is an issue here. So the new belt's on here, and it looks, I mean, it looks good and all that stuff, but it is entirely too tight. So what's happened is if you go to try to start it, it wants to turn the tires, it wants to move everything, you know, and it's a really big strain on this starter generator. So that's not good either. So I'm assuming because, you know, A, this is a new belt, B, you know, with this all being rebuilt now, maybe there was debris in there that was keeping it spread open just a little bit. I'm not sure, but you can see it's right above where it should be. And I can tell it's real tight back in here. So what needs to happen is I need to take this primary wet clutch back apart again, unfortunately, and it needs shimmed so it doesn't, so it's dragging like it should. So this belt is supposed to be, you should be able to spin it like this and nothing here moves. So there's a bearing, it's down in here, and it's supposed to be riding on that bearing. So, and then whenever you tap the throttle, this closes up just a little bit, and that's what causes the grip on the belt, and that's what gets you moving. So like I said, this primary wet clutch has to come back apart, and it has to be reshimmed. This is the correct belt for this, by the way, so it's not like I got a shorter belt by accident. No, it is the correct belt and everything, but for some reason, you know, I got to take this back apart. So I'm probably not going to do that in this episode here, only because that's going to take some time. So, and I figured it'd be better off to show exactly how to do that, because I believe the book calls for a feeler gauge you put in here in between the belt and the pulley here to get it where it should be, and there's shims that you put in there to get you spaced out to where it should be. So like I said, that'll be the next episode. So I apologize for not being able to run it to show you if it actually fixed everything or stopped leaking. I know everything's full oil right now, so it's not leaking, so that's a plus. So I'm assuming that we're on the right track here. Well, folks, I apologize I can't get this thing running for you or show you running around to see if we got everything fixed. Like I said, it's not leaking oil now, so that's a plus, but running it's going to be the tall tale. So stay tuned for the next episode on adjusting the primary wet clutch for the belts there. So please hit that like and subscribe button, and until next time, take care.